What is a deed? And what kind of a deed should you get for your rental investment? That's today's show. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And this is the Investing in Real Estate show. Our goal is to help you create financial intelligence through real estate investing. The vehicle that we use is buy and hold real estate, creating passive income and cash flow, also adding to our net worth, building great tax shelters. We teach you how to do all of that here on the show. So today we're going to talk about a deed. Let's talk about why that's important and what is a deed in the first place.
Indeed, we are going to talk about that.
I thought about that joke beforehand. I was like, I'm going to use indeed as a joke.
How proud I am of myself. Okay, so a deed is just sort of the basic elements of when you buy a property. And we've been talking about this kind of thing lately, so I felt like, well, maybe we should sort of break it down, because a lot of times you buy a house, you get a big stack of documents, and inside of that is all kinds of gobbledygook that maybe you don't even know what's really in there. But once you sign off on your deed and the deed is recorded at the county, it is a record of the fact that you have ownership of that parcel, that property, right? So if there were any kind of, say, dispute over who owns the property, a deed is your record of ownership. It says that you actually own this place, you went to the title company, you signed, you gave money in order to buy it. Now, there are two types of deeds, and it's important to know the difference because they're used differently by investors.
And so let's just first say that when you purchase a rental property, for instance, if I buy one of my properties in Michigan, or I buy one in Indianapolis, or I buy one in Ohio or Pennsylvania, that is recorded at the county. Now, you know how county bureaucracies can be, right? And how slow moving, like molasses, they can be. We bought a couple of properties where we had to call up the county. I think it was in North Carolina.
Many times.
Yeah. Like, hey,
where's our deed?
And it has nothing to do with the title company. I mean, it's literally the county and how slow they are. I remember our first two properties we bought in Michigan. It was like 6 months before we got the deeds in the mail.
Right.
You're like, hey, look, we're official. I was like, oh my God, I forgot about those.
Now, a lot of times the title company will email you now the copy of the deed, but you want the one that's raised with a stamp that says that the county actually has it on recording.
So typically you can call the county recorder's office, and usually you have to wait like a month or two for them to process it. But that would be the office that would put it in the mail to you.
Now, on any given parcel of land, let's talk about like the parcel of land we're sitting on, right? Mm-hmm. The county will have a record of who has owned it from the time it became sort of zoned for whatever use until now, right? And so
most of the time. So going back even like 100 years,
right.
Most of the time. That's why a title company will do a title search, and they'll try to track it back many generations. Most of the time they can pull that off.
Now, if I want to sell this piece of land to you, what I offer you is a deed. It says that I am transferring ownership to you. Now, there are two main ways to do that. You can do what's called a grant deed or a warranty deed, or you can do what's called a quitclaim deed. And they both have their own uses, so we'll talk about it. Now, if you're buying a house that you are living in and you intend to keep forever, what you really, really want is a grant deed or a warranty deed, because it says that I am giving you this property and I guarantee that I have ownership of this property to give to you. Right? So what the title company will do is what's called a title search. They'll go back and say, okay, yes, this person owned it, then this person owned it, then this person owned it, and then Natalie eventually owned it, and she can then, in fact, sell it to Clayton, right? And the title company will sell you an insurance policy saying, we did the historical work, we are pretty sure that Natalie can sell this to Clayton, and we issue an insurance policy where if for some reason it wasn't hers to sell and we didn't see that, then we'll help you figure it out, right? That's what your title insurance policy is.
Right. And so there's many situations. I know when I was doing a lot of wholesaling in the state of New Jersey, I came across, remember that one property in East Orange where like the brother was like, yeah, I'm going to sell this property. I'm like, okay, great. I'll take it off your hands. It needed like $100,000 worth of work. Mm-hmm. And he thought he had full ability to sell the house. Well, when the title company ran the title search, they saw his name, but they also saw his brother's name.
Oh, right. I do remember
And
this.
his brother had equal ownership of the property and would have to sign off on the sale. Well, it turns out they hate each other. They haven't talked to each other in like 9 years. He was an alcoholic. He's like, oh, no. He's like, I'll just sign for it. I just signed for it. I'm like, you understand, we cannot close on this property
Right.
until both of you sign the purchase agreement or for the closing. You can't do it with just one person.
Right. In a recent episode, we talked about how if there were ever any dispute of ownership of something, because say that guy did sell to you,
Right.
and then the brother came along and said, well, no, I actually own half the value of this land, then you'd have to go to court. And the court would look at what's called the muniments, which is just like the pieces of data that prove who owns the property, who has the rights to it. So your deed is your most important monument, right? So a warranty deed is something that's been researched. The title company knows what they're getting involved in. They'll issue an insurance policy against the fact that they have actually authorized this transaction. Now, different type of deed is called a quitclaim deed. Have you ever heard the expression, if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you?
Right. Of course.
So do you know what that comes from?
No.
It actually comes from the quitclaim deed. That's
Really?
what that expression is from, because the quitclaim deed says that I deed my rights to this property to you. There is no guarantee that I ever had a right to this property to sell it in the first place. So there used to be a scam back in New York in like the 20s and 30s where people would sell off pieces of the not the Golden Gate Bridge, the bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Where people would sell off pieces of the Brooklyn Bridge. And these people who were selling this
Didn't have
had no actual right to it. So I can deed you anything. Like I can deed you that house over there by a quitclaim deed. I can deed you that house over there by a quitclaim deed. It's not guaranteeing that I ever had ownership of that to sell you in the first place.
But of course you can do, and title companies will do a basic search to see that yes, you in fact have your name is on the parcel, you are registered at the county. But them going any deeper than that, like looking for a long lost relative or going back 10 years, they're not going
Right.
to, it wouldn't arise to that.
They will do that because they're involved in this transaction, right? But if they actually did any of the research, it would cost you a lot more. So why do people use a quitclaim deed? Well, sometimes you do it because maybe you own a piece of property and you want to transfer it into a different LLC that you own, and you don't want to pay the full costs of the title company to do the title search.
We've done a lot of quitclaim
Right.
deeds,
So we'll quitclaim deed it from this LLC to that LLC.
because we know we own it.
Right. And we already had like a warranty deed on
Right.
the first purchase, right? The problem with doing that, if you're an investor, is that when you bought it for the first time, the title company gave you an insurance policy that the deed that they gave you is a good one. It's a warranty or a grant deed. Well, when you quitclaim it into another LLC, that insurance policy is null and void. The insurance policy is only on that transaction, not the new one. So you better be pretty sure that you own it now in order to quitclaim it over. But it's a great way to, a quitclaim deed sometimes costs as little as $150.
We've done it. So when we first bought our first round of properties, I think we bought them in our own name, right? And so then we transferred, we did a quitclaim deed from our own name to our LLC. You'll have it all the time where people will have your own LLC and then quitclaim deed it to another LLC,
Exactly.
which we've done multiple times.
Exactly right. Now, also, we saw the quitclaim deed used a lot in the mortgage crisis of 2008, 2009. Mostly because these loans were being put on properties and the banking practices were atrocious. The banks couldn't even pull back the onion enough to know who had bought it when. So they tried to sell them, at auction. So the banks sold them. They had no way to even know where that mortgage had come from. They had no way to know who they bought it for. Some people were just leaving their properties. So they were quitclaim deed these properties to new buyers left and right. It got so bad that in 2009 there were banks that would no longer, title companies that would no longer issue title insurance to two major banks because it was so bad.
Was it Countrywide? No,
I don't know who it was, but
Yeah.
I'm sure I could look it up. So, title from 2008 on is always going to be a little contentious because that mortgage crisis sent us in a tailspin that we are still cleaning up after 10 years later. So when you see something like a quitclaim deed from a bank, you might want to be like, wait a minute, and just see, what's behind that curtain.
Right. Yeah. And so, but this is important for taking ownership of property and then going forward and making sure that you have your ducks in a row. And oftentimes, the beauty of a quitclaim deed also will not trigger a due on sale clause. Now, this is something that Garrett Sutton talks about. So, for instance, let's say you buy a piece of property and you've got a loan on that piece of property. You buy it under the name John Smith. You are John Smith as the person. And then you have a 30-year loan. You can then quitclaim deed that property over to an LLC that you set up for that property. And because it's not a technical sale, like a lot of family members will do quitclaim deeds to other family members, and you can do it for as little as, $1, really. So you can quitclaim deed property over, and it will not trigger that due on sale clause. Garrett Sutton, in an interview with us on our podcast, the attorney for Robert Kiyosaki, talks about that exact process.
Right. So again, you just want to make sure, like when we see a deal from a wholesaler that maybe we have never worked with before, and they're like, oh, we'd like to give you this, sell you this deal I got off market, and they bought it themselves. I'm like, well, I want to see a warranty deed or a grant deed. I don't want to see a quitclaim deed because I'm not sure you ever had it to sell to me, right?
Right.
Now, in the effect, like, if I did give you a quitclaim deed to the Golden Gate Bridge, right, and then we found out that I was a Rockefeller by blood, like the sole heir or whatever, and I had deeded whatever interest I may have in the property, not with no onus of proof that I actually did, right? So for an investor, again, if you're moving it around or you're working with someone you trust, like there are reasons to do it. It's certainly much cheaper, but especially for your primary residence, you don't want a quitclaim deed, right?
And so what's a grant deed then?
A grant deed is a warranty deed. So there's just those two, right?
Gotcha.
Quitclaim deed is just like whatever interest I may have, I sell to you. A warranty deed or a grant deed means that the onus of proof is on me that I actually own this property to sell to you. The title insurance company has verified that, and there is a title insurance policy that comes with it.
Good. Maybe we should do a whole episode on title insurance policies and what those cover. I think that'd be a good episode to do.
I'm not even sure. I need to read a book about it because...
we should have on somebody from a title company
Right.
to really dive deep into what title insurance does cover for people.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because we get it sometimes, on certain properties, and then other times we don't have it, and you're like, okay, what does that exactly cover? I mean...
Right. Where's the title policy? You don't have one.
Yeah, you don't have one.
Okay. All right.
So that's a look at deeds. Any final thoughts on deeds?
Indeed, I do not.
Indeed, you don't.
No.
That's the Investing in Real Estate show for today. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you want, we've got a ton of great resources over on our website, by the way. So just come on over to morrisinvest.com. We've got a ton of great blog posts up there, past episodes, a lot of resources and free downloads for you to take away from as well. So come on over, visit us at morrisinvest.com. Now go out there, take action, become a real estate investor, because it's the #1 way to build wealth. We'll see you next time, everyone.